Hey everybody, this is Petey from Spinner Rack, and I did the Secret Origins of the Doom Patrol. And that Secret Origins, one thing I didn't say was that it tied into every bit of the original history of the Doom Patrol and the stuff that happened in the Titans. So it's one of the titles that it wouldn't really get a reboot, right? It would kind of, all of the stuff in the timeline would kind of work. They would just try to reveal, and you can see from these covers, there's some other things that are going to be revealed as we go along, right? So instead of doing the Byrne run, I'm going to do the less popular run of Paul Kupperberg, Steve Lightle, and Gary Martin. Gary Martin from Nexus fame, who inked some of the Nexus. Do I have some of that there? Yeah, he doesn't get a cover credit on this, but at some point, Gary Martin did some inking on Nexus. All right, and also I was a big fan of Steve Lightle. I seen his covers on, I think, Classic X-Men and a bunch of other things. So I kind of wanted to see a monthly series of his. And Paul Kupperberg is kind of, his approach to it was kind of doing the FF with some X-Men sensibilities. So he would start to introduce some other characters. The other thing of note is that the more popular run would be the Grant Morrison run that came later, which was kind of a little too weird for me. Now, people will point out that Doom Patrol was weird for its time, and Grant Morrison would keep that thread, and not to dispute that too much. The Doom Patrol was always DC weird. It was kind of the Marvel type of book because it had the bickering. So it's kind of like the Marvel book that DC did, but at the same time, it had like the DC monsters, the kind of monsters you see in House of Secrets, you see in Mark Merlin, you see in House of Mystery, stuff like that. Those kind of wacky sort of DC aliens. Sometimes you see some wacky ones in Superman. So the Doom Patrol is just kind of the DC sensibilities, but extracted when you say it's Marvel, it kind of makes it weirder. So I think since Morrison made it kind of a 80s weird, and kind of, this was already the new characters that that Kupperberg was bringing in were kind of punk, and Morrison would take that to the next level with his Crazy Jane and a bunch of other characters. But let's get to it, right? So this, ultimately, I kind of feel like this should have been like a huge hit for DC, right? And then obviously it's a Vertigo fame, the book with the covers and Morrison. I don't think it went to huge sales, but it went to critical success. But when you look at a cover like this, in Kupperberg's other plan, and I'm just covering this hopefully just for 5 minutes, that he'd introduced a lot of old with the new. And then this cover, as when I looked at it, maybe it's a possibility that Nice Calder comes back, Rita comes back, and it's a new and an old thing. I didn't know there'd be new characters yet. But since I just want to give you a brief overview of this short sort of run, because soon after, Steve Lightle doesn't stay on the book. Steve Lytle's kind of an artist like Harry Gamble, who kind of does some titles but doesn't really stick. But he's like one of the top artists that you could get. Like, he's really a great artist, and I didn't see him stick to a title that long. I think he did an X Factor issue, stuff like that. The Legion of Superheroes, right? Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, so we start, and we also have another award-winning person involved in this team. We have John Workman from the who was from the Thor fame with Walter Simonson, the great letterer from I think he was editor of Heavy Metal, and he was one of the great letterers of Walter Simonson's work. Worked on Byrne's Fantastic Four, and he's working here. Right, we're at the site where the Doom Patrol died. And it's kind of one of those shots we've seen kind of Byrne do, the memorial shot. And then we have what's going on in the future. It's really similar to the X-Men 114 cover, right? So he's kind of invoking some X-Men and some FF, kind of putting both together. But this, obviously, the wheelchair. So it's kind of that sort of moment that Byrne had, but a little even more emotion here, right? And we have a Randy Calder, the person who has said she was Niles' husband. Sorry, Niles was her husband. Excuse me for that. When she at the crash site, she sees the wheelchair there. So that means he had to have died. And she's thinking about it. We have a flashback of the last moment of the patrol. And then once she pulls this out of here, she realizes that she believes her husband is alive. Right? Because the wheelchair would have came with something to help him. So trying to figure a way to regroup the team. Right? So look at this stuff. Like, this is really nice stuff. Right? She's gorgeous. So I think I immediately fell in love with her in the Secret Origins, and this carried on. And then I was thinking, I think I need to get those back issues that they were in a showcase. But they have her here. She looks extra gorgeous with the new Doom Patrol. Right? Right? So we got, and she's also my Celsius. We got Joshua, who is Tempest, and we have the negative woman, who's Valeria. Right? So we have there a little bit of stories, a little bit of flashbacks, kind of keeping with how Marvel books would be, where they'd have like some cool flashbacks. Roger Stern and Byrne were big on flashbacks, and keeping with that sort of note to get you up to speed, right? But at the same time, with all that happening, she kind of felt alive, and she wanted to resume that life again, right? So now we caught up where she was kind of running with Valeria was kind of running with these government types, and now she's on this, and now she's still with them. I'm looking at this thing here, but this is leading up to another subplot, right? Oh, so these people are following her. So sorry about that. Let's keep going, right? So seeing all his women are gorgeous, and he talks about what happened to her. And look at this the emotion in the tone here. It's almost too perfect, right? This is a great shot. The horse riding and the close up at the same time. Instead of doing the Neil Adams head in the page, kind of having a double image going on here, which is something that I think could work a lot for comics. Right? So he's horse riding. He sees an explosion or some smoke, so he goes to follow it. It's actually Celsius. Right? And they go on trying to kill her, and then he gets involved. And he's trying to get them together. And she says, "Nice colors alive," and no one can survive that class. Not even him, right? He almost died, right? So they get into a big fight, and he doesn't even believe that they're married, right? Right, so here we go. and the exchange is really good here. Like I know people don't even connect with it, but it's really Kupperberg really did some great stuff. I think he worked on some Superman titles. I know he worked on Superboy, which I used to buy. But here he kind of stepped up the game, right? So we get to introduce who the main villain is here, right? He's over in the Himalayas, and we got this, and we get our first funky villain, right? You're gonna see him later, and this is Kalkai, right? And it's a really cool looking villain, right? And we don't know what his history is actually going to be, but he's able to draw people into his chest, right? So it's a horrifying thing where you take a regular sized person and it goes right into his chest, and that's to show you what happens, right? So then we have, I think it's a psychiatrist, and Dr. Carmichael, but it's actually an alias, right? And it's actually Joshua, and meeting up with the robot man. He's living a false life. He's still kind of in love with Val, but they're talking it out. They have this banter, but he realizes that just like Arani did for him, Robot Man has brought the government agents to his place, right? And he gets upset, but then he apologizes. Right, so they're finally gonna figure out what happened to the Doom Patrol. So they go back to the site. When they say the chief might be alive, he apologizes. So we go in there, they're waiting, feel like they're being manipulated. He said, then Robot Man comes out. And this really dramatic moment. Then he falls out and he has this emotion. And he sees her ring. But she still stands firm that Niles is dead. That Niles is not dead, and Robot Man can't take it. There's just a lot of arguing and yelling, trying to almost get back to where the Fantastic Four were, right? And it seems this just kind of works because she's kind of headstrong. She's kind of the leader, and she's kind of forceful. And then they get attacked, and then the classic Fantastic Four moment. That voice cannot be. You're dead. I saw it. And then she gets stunned, and Robot Man goes to take him out, and Kalkai immobilizes him, and we know what happens. So then we get a little bit of, if you didn't know who they were, you get to see all of the team, which is the new Doom Patrol, Celsius, the Negative Woman, Tempest, and Robot Man. And Byrne does a drawing here. So we got a little bit of Byrne in there, right? How far are we? 13? Ooh. I use a lot of time on the background, right? But let's see. So we see inside of Kalkai's chest, the Robot Man's possibly going through, right? So it's still in Jamaica, right? And got this big explosion, and Tempest is out here ready to take action. And they've captured, but they can't hold Tempest. So Tempest is going, making short work of these guys. And Cliff is devoured. But Joshua has no interest in freeing Irani Celsius, right? And then he gets knocked out and he gets put back in the tube, right? So now we're going to get to see the history of Kalkai, right? And we get a little history of his connection. get his real name. And here we have something else going on. We're not sure what's happening, but it's going to lead to something we can see on that other cover, right? And there we got Robot Man who's still in his stomach. So see, we had some weird stuff in here, right? He's in Kalki's stomach. And World of Krypton, that's a must read for you guys. And this is kind of the character is going to be like it's going to be possibly your Nick Fury. But he's like the detective going to unfold kind of, or maybe he's more like the terrible Turpin, this Harry Stein, right? And he's going to find out what's going on. But at the same time, we got Valenta, Colonel Valenta. I keep mixing that up. Valeria. Sorry, guys. And she's trying to track the Doom Patrol. I told you his babes are extra hot. And he's having a little indigestion with Robot Man in his chest, right? So now we get the history of Kalki, right? Meets Niles Calder. So Niles Calder is becoming a part of this book, even if it's just flashbacks, right? And Kalki, he kind of gets some sort of thing he infects himself with, and Niles doesn't know whatever's going on, but then we hear Robot Man bust out of his stomach, right? And I love the cheat of the size, like it, you know, the dimension inside the stomach is larger than what we see, right? She goes out there to make short work of them, and they get to dropping her, and then the negative woman comes out, but make short work of these guys. Another cool double image. I think comics should try to do more of that. While he tells them that thinks the chief is actually alive, right? But then they, of course, get the drop on Robot Man. Val is still trying to make it a way out. He's fighting all these dudes. We get some nice action. And I think we've already revealed who this is because he thinks it's the chief. Valentina. And then, of course, another cliffhanger leading to we have another member has survived, right? Which is cool. So let's go through this one. This is going to be the last one for the day. And I have to go online to see if I can find John Workman's font. Hope it has. It'd be cool if someone did that, right? So he has his plan. Of course, you always have the big missile. So this is kind of like Doom Patrol, the movie. The new, well, they're not going by the new. They're just trying to let you know these are the Doom Patrol, right? You realize that Harani, she's going to die, but actually Kalki is her father. So it has that kind of Marvel feel where we connecting the villains to the heroes, right? And you can kind of say that was kind of hinted, probably how um, Irene and Niles kind of got together, right? So we have the robot. We have the negative man here. So they're gonna try to save him at the same time, and then we get to the flashback of what happened, right? He sort of became a monster. The thing trying to devour Niles while he's trying to sedate him. But Niles figured a way to help him out, right? And then Roadman always has a good one-liners in this series. So it's kind of something where Kupperberg was doing his best work, but it would be ultimately eclipsed by Grant Morrison taking over the team and making it extra weird and being a part of the British invasion. So I'm going to show you that this was a fun series, right? You see, you got all the Doom Patrol captured. They have all this big plans, but then who do we have? But this detective that's coming in and to help him, right? If this isn't Marvel, I don't know what is. Right? Mike Baron killing it. Look at that. Sonic Disruptors. And then we get you introduced to a new character that's going to either join or maybe the next villain. I think I already spoiled it, but right. So as we go, you have this lieutenant who's looking for Valenta Vostok. And something turned off the lights, and the Doom Patrol are free. Right? Leave it between father and daughter. And then the Doom Patrol deal with the cannon fodder. They shot the missile off into the air. And this they've launched the negative woman into space. All right, so she's doomed. And we have Harry Stein, who's a member. So it's always good to have a human character within these things. And he kind of like same way Alicia kind of saves the day, like helps them get free. There's a big fight between these two. This villain is too cool to get rid of, right? And Embrace, this is like crazy, right? So you were wondering about had to be weird. It's not weird enough. It's weird. And look, it's like gorgeous art. Well, almost flawless art. Obviously, there might be stuff I don't know as far as actual art, but it looks like she had to take out her father, right? So they realize the negative beings have been destroyed, and then what? Nope. She gets up, and Larry got a chance too, right? So it's a split between the two of them. So here we're going to get a new headquarters and all that. And Byrne kind of had that sort of thing where they had different headquarters and whatnot. So yeah, this was a fun series. Tell I hadn't read it in a while, but I pulled it out. Just, kept kind of passing by it. For some reason, I missed issue 4, but I have issue 5. But I think when I was saying I was going to the cons, I was gonna get the rest of this run. But at the same time, some of the cons cost a little too much money. So you guys saw what I bought from the cons and the signatures. I don't know if I'll do much buying from the cons anymore, but at some point I will try to finish collecting this run of I guess issue 4. I have 5, and then I think I have 8 somewhere, but because it's a Superman crossover. But this is pretty decent. It's a gorgeous art. Babes are super hot. I'm using Cliff's voice, and yeah. So it would be, of course, Eclipse, as I said, by Grant Morrison and Richard Chase's run, and it would become one of the favorites of the Vertigo line. But there we go. We have the Doom Patrol. Spinner rack out.